So really a goal with this text and with any text like it is that over the span of days, we are engaging with the text in different ways and we're integrating a range of standards and experiences for students. So we're thinking about foundational skills, we're thinking about vocabulary, we're thinking about phonics, we're connecting to phonological awareness, and we're also connecting to larger content area standards. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning,
Miss Hollett is my name. I'm going to be reading 2 books to you today. And when we read these books, our goal is to learn a lot about ponds and the kinds of animals that live in ponds and what they look like and what they do. So we're going to start with this book. It's called Around the Pond, Who's Been Here? By Lindsay Barrett George. And when we read this book, we're going to make predictions about the kinds of animals we're going to see based on the word clues and the picture clues that the author gives us. Cammie and her brother grab their berry containers and follow the old deer path that circles the pond. A dead sugar maple stands alone by the water's edge. White feathers are stuck to the bark around a hole. Who's been here? So the author just asked us a question. The author asked us, who's been here? So I'm going to think about the clues that the author gave me. So first I'm going to think about the word clues she gave me to see if I can figure out who's been here. So the author said that there's a dead sugar maple, that's a tree, and that there are white feathers stuck to the bark around a hole. Do you see the hole in the tree? Yeah, there's the hole. So I'm thinking, who's been here? What kind of animal has white feathers? And what kind of animal might be in a hole in 2 baby wood ducks? Aren't they cute? A tree has fallen across the path and into the pond. William dangles his feet in the water. He sees a shallow crater on the sandy bottom. Who's been here? Now, a crater is like a little hole at the bottom. And so we see this shadow. So the author used her words to tell us that there's a crater, that there's a little hole in the bottom of the pond. So that means we also know that this animal lives in the water. And the author's also given us this illustration. So take a second to think, and then I'm going to have you share your prediction with your partner. Who's been here? I'm thinking about what animals I know live in water. Whisper to your partner. What kind of animal do you think it is?
I don't have a partner. I don't have one.
You don't have a partner. And then eyes and ears back up here, please. Thank you, Natasha, for turning around. Okay. So let's see. So we used the clues the author gave us. We made a prediction. A sunfish. So a sunfish is the kind of fish that digs a little crater, digs a little hole in the bottom of the pond. We had a couple goals for our reading. One was we wanted to learn more about ponds and the kinds of animals that live in ponds. And we also wanted to find out that information by making predictions about the animals we'd see using the word clues and picture clues that the author gave us. So I drew a map, and I gave you some picture clues. Hands to yourself, please. I gave you some picture clues about the different places that Cammie and William stopped and what they found. So you're going to get, I'm going to tell you one more time. I will give you 2 sticky notes. You'll go back to your table or back to your desk. And you're going to draw 2 animals that we read about, and you can label it or you can write a sentence. And then we'll see if you can help fill in this map, because then we're going to come back and we're going to put our animals where they were around the pond based on where they lived and what they were doing. So I said that we were going to read 2 books. So we read our first book, Around the Pond, Who's Been Here? And here is our second book. So we're going to get to keep learning about animals in the pond. So to start, I'm going to show you the pictures in this book, but I've covered up some of the words because I want you to think about what words might we see in this book. We can use the pictures as a clue to think about what are the kinds of words that we might see in this book. So, let's see if we can. See if we can put it up here so it will stay. So we're looking at the pictures and we're thinking about what kind of words might we see in this book? What kind of words might we need to read? My name is Ms. Hollett. I had so much fun reading with you yesterday. And today we're going to get to read some more. So if you remember what we did yesterday is we read 2 books about ponds. And our goal was to learn information about ponds. And when we started reading this book, we read it a couple times yesterday, didn't we?
Yeah.
The first time we looked at it, remember I covered up some words, and even though some of you could see through the words. And we looked at the pictures, and we made predictions about what the book might be about and what words we might read. And then we started reading it again, really thinking more about the words and what those words mean. And we found 5 words that we thought were important to understanding our story. And we talked even more about what they meant. So we're going to start over, reading one more time. We're going to look for our vocabulary words. And we're going to talk again about some other words that we see in this book and what they mean. And the first time that we're going to read this book, I'm going to read the sentence in the story, and then you are going to read after me. So when I say my turn, or if I point to myself, I'm reading it. But when I point to you, you are going to read it. So let's practice. My turn. In the small, small pond.
In the small, small pond.
Nice job. Give yourself a pat on the back. That was good reading. So now we see the cover page again. So we'll get a chance to read the sentence again. In the small, small pond.
In the small, small pond.
And ice back here. Waddle, wade, geese parade.
Waddle, wade, geese parade.
Hover, shiver, wings quiver.
Hover, shiver, wings quiver.
And we're seeing another word. So we'll think about what hover means. Keep it in your head. Remind your brains, what are these insects doing? What does it mean to hover? Turn quickly, tell your partner, what does hover mean?
Harbor means to fly.
Yeah, it's flying. They're kind of floating or hanging in the air. They're not zipping around. They're just kind of floating like that in the air. Good job. And please turn your eyes and ears back here. Who can share a definition of the word hover? What are these insects doing? Aaron, what do you think?
They're hovering.
They're hovering in the air.
In midair.
So they're flying in midair.
Not touching the ground.
You're right, they're not touching the ground, Aaron said. Would someone like to add on? What do you think?
They're floating.
Yeah, it's like they're floating in the air. Like Aaron said, they're not touching the ground, kind of like a ghost. Okay, we're gonna go on. Hands down, please. So see if you can read this page with me this time. Drowse, doze, eyes closed. Let's look at this word doze. Together, what sounds do we hear in doze? Oh, we're thinking about the sounds we hear. D, O. I see that silent E. Yeah, Jay says it has 3 sounds, but it has 4 letters. Now you can take the cap off your marker now. And let's think, how would we write the word doze if we put only one sound in each box? It'll be oh, I hear Kylie is thinking about the sound she hears. Jace has got it. Guillermo's got it. But where do we put that silent E?
Right with the E.
I see. Abigail remembered we can't forget about that silent E.
Because D and E make one sound.
Because it's not the word does.
No.
So we'll put the E in the same box. Natasha's got it. Okay. There's the I.
Dragonflies.
Okay. Let's do this one. Thank you for having your eyes up here. Thank you. Let's read this one together. Hover, shiver, wings quiver. On all of the other pages, the author has told us the name of the animal. But on this page, I don't see it. It says that it has wings. So some of you may know what this animal is. When I first read this book, I didn't know what it was. So I went and I found another book about ponds, and I tried to find this picture to see if I could find another book that told me more information. So let's look at the cover. Do you see the picture of that animal on the cover? Do you see it?
It's a dragonfly.
So when I saw this cover, I thought, I bet that this book is going to give me more information about the insect I saw on this page. So I flipped through this book.
Are you going to read it?
Oh, and I just started looking for that animal. And I found this page.
The dragonfly. The dragonfly.
And I saw the header of this page was dragonfly. So sometimes, if we're reading one book and that book doesn't give us all of the information, something good readers can do is they can find a different book, and maybe that other book will give them the information they're looking for. So this book told me that this insect is called a dragonfly. So, that's a longer word. So I'm going to think about writing the different parts of the word. So first, I'm going to write the word dragon. Dragon. And then I can write the second part of the word, fly. Can you help me write the word fly?
F-E.
At this F-L-Y, fly.
Banana.
Dragonflies. I'm sorry, you were looking at this says dragonflies. So if I wanted to write the word for more than one dragonfly, I could write it this way. So now let's think, what does this animal look like?
It looks. Wait, I know.
Let's keep your ideas in your head, please. I'll make sure everyone can see this picture. How would you describe what this animal looks like? Turn and tell your partner, how would you describe what this insect looks like? How would you describe what this insect looks like?
It looks like a bird. It looks like it has wings.
Who can raise their hand and share, what did you and your partner talk about? How did you describe what the dragonfly looked like? And I appreciate how Jace has a silent hand. Yeah, what'd you talk about?
They look like a wasp.
So you said they look like a wasp.
Like a red wasp. Right there looks like a bee.
So when you were thinking about how to describe this insect, you thought about other insects that you know. So you said it looks a little bit like a wasp. So I could say that dragonflies have wings. I could say that their body is long. Is that what you were thinking? So let's finish our last column. So what do dragonflies do? So now I can go back to our first book to find some of that information. What did the author tell us that dragonflies do? What do they do when they're at the pond? Oh, and Allison. Thank you, Bryson, for raising your hand. What do? They fly. How specifically do they fly? The author gave us that one of the words that we've been talking about. Yes. They hover. So that means that while they're flying, they may stay and kind of float and hang in the air over the water. I chose this book in the Small, Small Pond for this lesson for a lot of different reasons. So the first thing I thought about was alignment to the objectives and aims of my lessons and to the unit that we were doing. So this book specifically fits in a mini unit on pond life. And that's part of a larger science unit where we're looking at different animal habitats and ultimately categorizing animals based on the habitat that they live in. I also chose this book because teaching first grade foundational skills are so important, and this book gave a lot of words that allowed students to practice thinking about different vowel patterns, different inflectional endings. It had single syllable and multisyllabic words. So I knew that it would be a really great text to integrate foundational skills with. My next consideration was my students' age and their strengths and needs and experiences. So they love rhyming books. I think the predictable nature, the repetitive text here, I think it just gave them a lot of confidence, a lot more confidence to engage with the text. I also chose it because of our unit on habitats and on ponds. I think some of my students have the background knowledge. You know, there's some different state parks near the school that some of them have been to, and so I think some of them were excited to see some animals that they recognized. And at the same time, there are some of my students have pretty little background knowledge related to ponds, and so this was a book that I knew would help them build some schema around the topic. And then back to foundational skills, I thought that this text would help because it represented the range of learners in my classroom. So there were words like wade and dive that some of my students who just really need practice with that CVCE vowel pattern got a chance to do that authentically through this text. But there were other more advanced words like plunge and splatter and scatter that some of my more advanced students could practice with. And I also considered text complexity when I was choosing this book. Quantitatively, I couldn't find a lexile measure in the online database I usually use because this is a non-prose text. But I did take some time myself to look through the words and the sentences, and even though the sentence structure was a bit less complex, I felt like the different vocabulary words and the different vowel patterns still made it quantitatively complex and also gave it some complexity in terms of language conventionality. The structure, again, was pretty simple because it's so repetitive, but the knowledge demands I thought were appropriately complex for my kids, because even though there were some familiar animals in this text, like raccoon, there are also a bunch of animals I think my students were pretty unfamiliar with, like heron and muskrat and tadpole and whirligig. So I thought it did align pretty well with some complexity expectations I hope to meet in terms of knowledge demands. And my last consideration when selecting this book was thinking about its quality. It is a Caldecott winner, and so the illustrations are not only just really beautiful and really interesting to look at, but they also provide a lot of additional information. And so that's something that we practiced in these lessons, was thinking both about the clues that the author gave us in the words, but also really looking at the illustrations for additional clues.